So you don't use something like that?
What you want? Come here. You ain't got to walk away. If you want your mommy, say mommy. Say mommy. Say mommy. Oh, no, you just speak it. How about that? But then, anytime you come outside the house, you will get away. You want something, you run around out, you go and swim all day long. You come outside, you will cry for everything. You want your mom to ask your mom.
I'm hearing everything about you. I start on time regardless of CP people's time. Yes, sir. Okay. So in about 3 minutes we'll start. Okay, is that right with y'all? If I could have phones on vibrating, including myself.
I did.
Can I get a bottle of water? Good on the live stream. Testing 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, I want to begin today's lecture. I'd like to thank y'all for coming out. I always start my lectures on time. Regardless, I know black people like to show up late, but we got to learn to be on time, so I always start on time to be punctual. So I believe it starts at 2 o'clock. So give yourselves a hand for being on real people time. I thank y'all for coming out. I don't know where y'all came from. I came from Jersey. I know Tazaryach came from New York. Some sisters came from Maryland. I mean, to see a lecture that I think is like one of the most important lectures that we could do. For those that haven't followed my lecture series, I came up with this miseducation series, I think it was about 2.5 years ago. And I came up with the concept because I feel like what we're educated, well, y'all know us as Israelites, we've had this Bible in our possession since we've been enslaved. It was just given to us by the slave master. The slave master would give it to us. Like there was a recent report where they actually showed the version of the Bible that they gave to us. And they would take out all of the verses that would make slaves like start an uprising and leave in all the verses that would make it seem that you're supposed to love your oppressor regardless of what. So even though we had the Bible in our possession, it wasn't the way the Lord wanted us to have it. And that was because we rejected it when it was in our land. So when I came up with the Miseducation series, it was to combat all of the things that we thought we had to be educated on. We thought we had to be educated on feminism, being feminist, abortion, homosexuality, white Jesus, if you want to call it that, Christianity, Islam, all these things that everybody knows about. Everybody knows about the Christian church. Everybody knows about the feminist movement where the black woman don't need a man in their house. And we all thought that that was the education that we needed. So this was a way to combat it. If you watch television today, you'll see like, I don't really watch reality shows, but I hear about them. So you see like the Hollywood Wives of Atlanta or Chicago, I don't know the cities. And all of them that you see is like themed where you see this right here. Like you see here, let me get this pointer right. Let me show you. You see this right here? This is the theme that you see between black men and black women, where we're consistently fighting each other. And I don't know if y'all can see this puppet master here, but this is the real problem which we're going to get into today. Because the only reason we're fighting and arguing with each other because there's an entity that exists between us, almost like a border. So that's what made me come up with the Miseducation series. So the first one was the miseducation of the black woman. And the reason why I came up with that lecture was because black men are used for the white man. We know that. But black women are used by white women just as much. And so the white woman gave the premise like they was losing America. And you know who they used to push that fight with the black woman. They got the black woman to march and to rally for them. So I did that lecture to show that the black woman, you're beating the white woman. Like you're better than the white woman. And so after that, I wanted to do a lecture on the miseducation between the black man and black woman, because without a black household, I don't know if y'all that. Without any household, like you notice when we get into the feminist movement, you'll see that as much as the white woman wanted a better job, she never wanted to put the white man out of her house because she knew that that was her protector. But when it comes to us, the only way they teach a black woman to be strong is if the man that she let impregnate her is not in the house. Is if the man that she has children with can't give her instruction. She can't get no assistance. So that's where I birthed this lecture, so that maybe if we destroy the argument between the two of us, it's almost like We look at each other as enemies, but we don't see the real enemy, which we'll see. A lot of people like to call it white supremacy. It's hard for me to, I'm going to use that word for this lecture, but I just don't believe the white man is supreme over me. So it's hard for me to understand that concept. But it's not hard for me to understand the white man putting devices to go in between us. So we're going to get into that. Give me the next slide. So now we're going to start here. When I did the Miseducation series, and it's important for y'all to follow me. If y'all haven't seen my lectures, they're all on our radio channel, Across the Line Radio. And I always take pieces from previous lectures to put them in this lecture. So now everything always starts with us with slavery. You have to deal with the root of the problem in order to fix it. And Black people are the only ones to ever go through such an atrocity. Like, there's never been nothing like the transatlantic slave trade, nothing. Now, you can talk about how other nations might have went to war, been impoverished, been enslaved for a time, but not like we have, where we've been taken totally from another region where we say we was living at, brought to another place, raped, robbed, pillaged, and never been allowed to be made whole. It's almost like being raped and then having to live in the same house as the man that raped you, which is what we have. Whereas every other race of people have been allowed to be free. The reason why the Jewish man didn't stay in Germany is because that's where he was destroyed at. So they allowed him to go into our land so that they can be away from their oppressor. So slavery is something that has generationally affected us. And when we used to say that, starting from like 1969, to say we are slavery is the problem, they used to say, no, it's not. Can you play this for me? This is called Slavery May Have Altered Black People's Body Chemistry.
We already know that this is a gene that contributes to risk for depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. When we look at their own children, their children also had an epigenetic change in the same spot on a stress related gene.
You see, I was saying science DNA is passed from parents to children. What they're telling you is that the slavery that we have, since we got here, the slavery or the oppression has passed down from parent to child, from parent to child, from parent to child, all the way to 2018. That's what they're telling you. That's why when we talk about dealing with the root of slavery, if we don't get over slavery, we're not going to get over the problems that we have. So there has to be a psychosis or a psychological breakthrough that Black people have to have. And we've had that in our graphs. We just ain't use it properly, which we'll find out today. Keep playing.
We're talking about multiple traumas for hundreds of years. Not only do you traumatize directly, you've seen your friends, your cousins, and everyone in your environment being beaten, sold away from families, raped, mutilated. All those things that were happening really eventually, of course, but looking at those traumas, is it plausible that those people escaped stress-related illness? Not plausible.
This is why you always hear Black people bring up slavery. And y'all notice that's the only thing you can bring up that they say you gotta let go. Y'all ever notice that? If you bring up the Holocaust, you can talk about that all the time. Only 3,000 people died when 9/11 fell. But they say we'll never forget that. But the minute that you bring up slavery, you can't. You gotta let it go. You gotta let it be the past be the past. Does anybody know why that is? Anybody know why that is? Anybody want to take a stab at it? This Say it one more time. That's a perfect answer. Not only that they hold themselves guiltless, but the white race or America or the entire earth does not have compassion on Black people or Hispanic people, and they never will. And we shouldn't ask them to have compassion. on us because they were made to be our enemies. You know where the compassion has to start? Between us. Like the hatred that we have. Did I cut the power?
I think it's God. I think you did.
So I can hold on. Did I hit the power?
I think you hit the cord.
Hit the cord on what? On this?
Yeah, it might have came out the wall.
Oh, my bad. I apologize. Let me stand over here then so I can get out my own way. My bad. Y'all don't mind, do y'all? That's okay? That don't click like the internet or nothing, right? Okay. So what I was saying was we shouldn't expect the white man or no race of people to have compassion on us. I think we've been in this condition for 400 and something years and have not had no compassion given to us. So why would we ever expect them to? But here's who's supposed to have compassion. A black man and black woman are supposed to have compassion on each other. Right. Brothers are supposed to love other brothers. Sisters are supposed to love other sisters. When we can get over that hump, there'll be nothing that can destroy that. No matter what you do, like Donald Trump got voted in office and he got the vote from more white women than he did not. Even though in the premise he's looked at as this male chauvinist, he's looked at as he looks at women as toys or what have you. But what that woman understands is although as vulgar as he is, that's his protector. Now, of course, I'm not telling a black man to be vulgar because I would hope that black men can be better than black women. But black women have to understand their role as being a supportive to their black man, and the black man has to understand his role as being a protector. Now, this is a summary of that video, and her name was Dr. Rachel Yehuda, which was a Jewish devil. She was the professor of psychiatry at the School of Medicine in Mount Sinai and conducted a depth research of epigenetics and the intergenerational transmission of trauma. The reason why they did this is not that they cared about black slaves or slavery. The reason why they originally did this was to talk about how bad the Holocaust was, because they cared about white problems. And then that led to them saying, okay, if this can happen to the people of the Holocaust, which was only, what, 6 years or something like that? 6 years? If that can happen to them for 6 years, what can hundreds of years of slavery do? So it says in layman's terms, she is researching how serious indictments of trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder can be passed down generations and shared family genes. Her research has revealed that when people experience trauma, it changes their genes in a very specific and noticeable way. So when those people have children and their genes are passed down to their children, the children also inherit genes affected by trauma. The abject horrors and brutality suffered by slaves is more than likely to have the same effect on black slaves' descendants worldwide. Go to the next slide. That's why you have different types of black people. You have the black people that want to fight, but you have a lot of black people that are passive aggressive. Because like that sister said in the beginning, she said, imagine it when they taking them strongest, biggest slaves and beating them in front of you. When they're raping that woman in front of you. Like that's, so the people, so imagine if that was happening right in front of here. You're gonna have some of y'all that's gonna want to fight, but you're gonna have a lot of y'all that say, I don't want that to happen to me, or I want to survive that. But we're still reproducing and having that same mentality. That's why we are destroyed the way we are. Play the next slide, please.
Look at the.
Now this is, for those that don't know, this is Frances Cress Wessling, a black psychiatrist. She says a lot of stuff. I'm gonna play, I think I got maybe 6 more videos of different aspects. She's also gonna talk about the black structure, which what she says is very important. Can you play that?
As family is concerned, you have to say that this is something that has been imposed on us because the family was not like it is.
Exactly. They say we would do well to say we don't have family. I say we have survival units of the white supremacy.
You see what she called it? She said it would do well to say that we don't have families. We have surviving units. Because since we've been in America, all we've been trying to do is survive. They supposedly freed the slaves in the late 1800s. And after the late 1800s, you had black cities that was able to come up in a short period of time, which became a threat to the white race because they expected us, you know, the thing before they so-called freed the slaves that we were dumb and stupid, that we couldn't learn. Which even that is kind of like funny to hear when they would take away our ability to read and write. When you hear about Washington, D.C. being designed by a brother, you start finding out all of the inventions that we thought were attributed to white people was attributed to us. So it's kind of hard to hear when they call us dumb and stupid when inside of 20 to 30 years, we were able to establish some of the greatest black cities we've ever had. So when they saw that, they would destroy, like Wall Street is the more popular one, but they destroyed Wall Street, they destroyed Rosewood, they destroyed DC, they destroyed, what's that city in Central Park, is that in New York?
Seneca Village.
Seneca Village, that was a black city where not black city, but that was a black village where black people lived. And because they wanted that park there, they destroyed Seneca Village. So we've had our own, but every time we would come up and have our own, they would destroy it. They bombed the village in Philadelphia. They bombed the section in Philadelphia as well. So all we've been doing is trying to survive. Like that thing, good times, struggling and surviving, that's a perfect statement because that's all we've done. That's why she said we have surviving units. Because when that black man and black woman get together, they say, okay, how can we survive? Keep playing.
Has been destroyed by the dynamic of white supremacy. And at the same time, I'm saying that it is our responsibility as black people to decode in detail how white supremacy carries out its destructive dynamic, and then you counter.
You see what she said? We can identify, whether you want to call it white supremacy, I like to just call it white man the devil. If we can identify what the problem is, you have to also identify what the solution is. So if we've been fighting each other, now this was said in the late 70s, early 80s. So now if we're in 2019, have anybody observed the state of the black man and black woman? You go to the next slide. Do y'all look at how the black man and black women are today? Can you go back to the first slide, the very first slide? Very first slide, if you could. This is the state of black people today. That's why I made this here. Every time I turn on, especially that social media, when I tell you I can't stand social media, you get on social media, this is all you see. The black man yelling at her, black woman yelling at him. This is a byproduct of what the white man started in the 70s, specifically. And I'll show you why I say in the 70s. This is where we're trying to get. Isn't this better right here? I had a joke earlier, but I'm not going to tell the joke. You had to be here early to get it. Now you can get me back to the slide that I was at. So now we have to start putting things in place. We got to identify the problem, and then we got to talk about how do we fix the problem. So one of the things I want to bring out is the hatred. Like y'all notice I said we got to have compassion. That's an easy solution, but we got to identify the hatred. Now, for us in the Israelite School of UPK, everything starts and stops with the Bible. Like the Bible is like, if we're the children of God, right? You ever go, I use the same analogy I got from Commander Jenny Hunt. When you go to an auto dealership and you buy a car, within that car, there's a manual that comes with that car. So when you open up that manual, it'll tell you when you got to get the oil change, it'll tell you how to look at the tires, it'll tell you how the heat works, it'll tell you how to radio, where to put the power steering fluid. They give you all the instructions because that manual was made specifically for that car. When it comes to us, and we're saying we're the children of God, but there's a manual. When I say children of God, I'm talking about Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. So there's a manual of instructions that God gave us. So now we follow that manual, we'll survive. We'll be fine. If we break from that manual, this is the byproduct of it. The byproduct of breaking from the manual of God or the Bible is that we are the most destroyed species on the face of the planet. So now hatred being one of them. The definition of hatred is an extreme like or disgust. Number two is an ill will or resentment that is usually mutual. That's why that image has a black man and black woman at odds. Like, and here's how destroyed we are. Every platform that I've watched where they say, how do you fix the problem between the black man and the black woman? You know what's the first thing either one says? They start pointing out all the problems that the other gender has. So if it's a black woman talking about how do we fix the problem, she starts saying everything the black man does wrong. If the black man starts talking about her pride, he's saying everything the black woman does wrong. How about we both just say we messed up? How about we both say that we failed at the job? Right. The black man has failed at his job. Right. The black woman has failed at her job. So now we get that out the way. So now we get the so-called competitive nature of who's right and who's wrong. And so now we both fail. Let's say, okay, I failed at this. Let me change this. She says the same thing. And then you can start fixing a level of hatred. Because if all we're going to have is a mutual disgust from each other, or prejudice, hostility, or animosity, we're never going to make it. How many baby mamas and baby fathers argue with each other, but they had a child together? So that means they took the time to lay and have sex with each other, but it shows that they hated each other because even though they share their child, they developed a level of hatred where she puts him on child support or he becomes an absent father. That's the hatred that we have. And this is talked about us. Everybody's familiar, well, should be. Deuteronomy 28:54 says, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil towards his brother, which is what you see of the hatred between brothers. Like we've developed a hatred that I can't even understand sometimes. Like I see all the love that you'll give. Like we can go out on the street corners and we can talk about brothers coming together, they'll be fine. But the minute you take that white man out the way and say we gotta hate the white man, they will fight us to love him, but they won't fight us to join each other to take away the hatred that we have for each other. It's illogical. It's like a psychological damage that we don't realize that we have. And it says towards the wife of his bosom. We treat women like they're a jump off. We treat women like you're gonna sleep with them, throw them away, and give them to somebody else. That's the hatred that we have. And if she gets pregnant, you either better abort that baby or expect me to be gone. Or you should have known I wasn't going to be here in the first place. General Hyman said something in class that was heavy. He said, you got brothers that are talk to a woman. And if that woman sleeps with him on the first date, will leave that woman because she slept with him on the first date, even though she was listening to him. You understand? So even though he seduced her, and she listened to it, he gets mad at her for listening to him. Because in reality, he's hating himself too. And he can't believe you could sleep with someone so disgusting. That's the hatred that we have. So now it says, and towards the remnant of his children, which he shall lead. Deuteronomy 28:56 says, the tender and delicate woman, which is the state that black women are supposed to be in. You're supposed to be tender and delicate. It says, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, which lets you know when a black woman is in her right state of mind, there ain't a better living creature on the planet. It's just not. I mean, we love and get with black women. Like from the Black Lagoon, imagine if she's in her right state, how stronger and better she'll be. I mean, even the Bible says the strongest thing outside of the Most High is what? A woman. Because of everything a man will do for that woman. You understand? So now it says, her eyes shall be evil towards the husband of her bosom. Because that woman, the greatest treasure a woman will have is her body for the most part. And one of those things in her body is her vagina. And she'll let a man go inside of her. And the minute he comes out, plots on how she can get vengeance on him or use it against him or use the kids against him. So it says her eye becomes evil toward the husband of her bosom and towards her son and towards her daughter. Because you have women that will tell the fathers of these children, I don't need you to raise my kids. When black women, all you are, when it comes to discipline, at most, you're a security guard. That's all you are. You ever go to the mall and you see the security guard? I mean, you listening to him, but you ain't really listening to him. He can't force you to do anything. But you will listen to a cop. I'm giving that analogy because the father is the cop. The mother is the security guard. Chris Rock gave the best analogy. He said if one woman could be the baddest woman on the planet, but she can't get her kids to listen to her. But the minute you say, I'm going to tell your daddy, you straighten up right away because you know the daddy is the disciplinarian. It's a balance. The woman is not supposed to be manly out there trying to discipline her kids. That's what the father is supposed to be there for. Give me the next slide. Now, definition of psychotherapy, which is what Black folks need. Psychotherapy is the treatment of mental or emotional disorders of or related bodily ills by psychological means. So if we had a psychological trauma happen to us, we have to go through a psychotherapy to get over it. For us, the answer to that psychotherapy starts with the Bible. It starts with an instruction. It starts with an order. Psychological is of or affecting or arising in the mind related to the mental and emotional state of a person. From someone that counsels, I counsel a lot. I counsel males and I counsel females. And every time I'm counseling them, I'm listening for what traumatic event happened to them that caused them to be the way that they are. Whether they didn't have a father around, whether they might have been molested, whether they might have been the molester, whether they might have been the abuser or the abused. I look for that because we're all psychologically damaged, whether we want to face it or not. My father was a drug addict. So my father would be in the picture, he would be out the picture, and I had an affinity for that. That's me. Like I had an affinity for my father to be there. So one time I had acted up in front of my mother and that forced her to go get my father. And so what that taught me psychologically is if I ever want my father to come around, I just act up. So I wouldn't go to school. I would go hang with the homies. And that would bring my father around. So it's almost like I developed wanting to get an ass whooping to bring my father around. But that was the only thing I thought that I could do because my father wouldn't come around no other way unless that happened. So that has to be addressed because we all suffer from absentee father syndrome or absentee mother syndrome. So those have to be addressed, and the fathers have to be fathers. The mothers have to be mothers. It says, this is just an example, the victim has sustained physical and psychological damage, and this is one of them. Isaiah 1:6. Now, when you read Isaiah 1:3, it says, the ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib. But my people don't know, we don't consider. Meaning we look for every single answer that we can find, whether it's that Christian church, whether it's some type of psychiatrist, whether it's school, whether it's the job we try to hide it in. We look at all these different things instead of the one place. Like when I was little, my grandma used to have this big Bible, like one of these things. Y'all see this Oxford Bible here? My grandma, everybody used to have that Bible. We used to sit like right there in the living room, just like that. And everybody would have it. But nobody thought to go in there to actually get the answer to the problem. Now we have the answer to address and give us the psychotherapy. We should be in this every day trying to find the answer. That's why we have classes every day, 7 to 9 p.m. So that we could be, like I've been in school since 2010. I've been in school. When I'm saying in school, in here. I go to class every day. I teach a class every week. I've been doing it for the rest of my life because this is where the answers are. That's why Isaiah 1:6 says, from the sole of the foot, even unto the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores that have not been closed. The Black family, and when I say Black, because I know I'm saying Black a lot, it encompasses all 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Black is a condition. That's why I'm using it so much now. Black is just a condition that we only suffer, all right? So now when it talks about wounds and bruises and putrefying sores that have not been closed, we have never healed from nothing that we've been through in America. From the time Columbus came over here and started kidnapping the Taino Indians, started kidnapping the Native American Indians, started kidnapping the Mexicans, forcing them to be Christian, we have not had any rest or any time to ourselves. Like there should be a healing time that we should have, but we've never had it. That's why it says they have never been closed, neither bound up, or neither mollified with ointment. An ointment is something, if you get a bruise or something, you put some ointment to give it a healing. We haven't had none of that because we've run, like number one, we've been taught that Jesus is a white man, or the Jewish people are white people, or you can't follow that book. Like they've destroyed that book so much. And when I'm saying destroyed it, not destroyed the words or anything in it, but the image of it. Like the image of the Bible is presented like when you talk to the average cat in the world and you bring up the Bible, they think of that white boy, they think of Christmas, they think God loves everybody, they think he's soft. I used to look at that picture of Jesus and I used to say, I could beat him up. Like he can't, like why would I listen to, nobody's gonna listen to a man that looks effeminate, and that's how he will come across. So that's what we would battle, and we would never look at that for the answer, but now you do. Now there's how you give it, now you do. So now there's really no excuse in 2019 to run from that Bible. To run from that Bible in 2019, that just means you don't want to fix the problem and you want to continue the problem. Well, I would rather fix it, and I need my brothers and sisters to join me. So now these are similarities and differences in Black men and Black women in psychotherapy. This was written by Billy E. Jones, MD, Beverly A. Gray, an MA in the Bronx, New York. And it says a survey of 93 psychiatrists concerning the psychotherapy of Black men and women indicated that there were more similarities than differences between the men and the women. Meaning like we be so busy trying to have a competition between the two of us when really we're suffering the same punishments. We're suffering the same prison. We're suffering the same hunger. We're suffering the same thirst, the same rape, the same mentality, the same attacks we're suffering. Now, it says both men and women had depression as the most frequent presenting problem, which is very easy for us to get depressed because we grow up in a struggle. Like we're not fortunate to grow up with any type of silver spoon, or I'm using that term because I'm a little older. That's what they used to say, you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth. We never grew up like that. We've all grown up in destroyed homes, especially if you're born after, I would say, 1970, maybe 71. On average, we're all born in destroyed homes, especially in the 80s. If you were born in the 80s, I feel sorry for you. It says, so now, with work-related and family problems, the next most frequent presenting problem, work-related because in America, everything starts and stops here. So an environment where your economics control the power that you have, that's why we suffer that depression. For a grown man or grown woman, if you don't have it, if a Black man don't have a job, he's looked at like he's the most worthless piece of trash if he don't have a job. Which is amazing to me because in this society, the Black woman can get a job far easier, which is done on purpose, which I'll show you. It's done on purpose so that way, because we already have that competition between us, that Black woman that has that better job and the brother that struggles to get the job, that Black woman is going to look at it like, I should be in charge. Because America makes the job dictate who's the boss in the house. If your job gets you more money, then you become the boss in the house. The job should never regulate your financial. The Lord never said the man is the head of the woman if he has a better job. If that brother is homeless and that's your wife, that's your husband, that's your boss. He tells you what to do. He can give you the best advice that you can give. It says Black men were most often diagnosed as having affective non-psychotic disorders, with anxiety disorder the second and most frequent diagnosis. Give me the next slide. Non-psychotic mental disorders are often less severe than psychotic ones. What they mean by that is, it's not a psychotic disorder where it'll make you go kill somebody, but it's hard for Black men to deal with stress. It's hard for Black men to deal with, that's why most Black men run. Like when they started taking jobs away from brothers in the 70s and so forth, like the brothers used to fight them wars and they would come home and all they had was heroin. And so now you sitting in the house, you can't get a job, but you looking at your kids, you looking at your wife, she looking at you like, what we gonna do? And Black men couldn't handle that. And so it was more easier for them to leave. I use my house as an example. That's what my father did. My father struggled getting work. He struggled with drugs, and he couldn't look at us if he couldn't provide, so he would just leave. That's why they say non-psychotic mental disorders are less severe. But it might be less severe for the father or for the man. But what about the child that now he can't have his father no more? So with them children, like children, you cannot, a mother, and for Black women, y'all need to understand, you can't tell your son, because daddy didn't give me $50 this week, he can't see you. The child's not gonna understand that. Like you tell a child, well, your daddy's suffering from a mental disorder, so he can't be around. He's not gonna understand it. You expect your father to be able to battle that so I can see you. But we don't have that because we don't have the compassion that it takes. Symptoms include excessive worrying, which is pretty much everything I just talked about. Trouble sleeping or concentrating, irritability. Can y'all put that phone on vibrate for me, please? Restlessness, feelings of worthlessness, suicidal thoughts, social and lack of energy. Obsessing over unimportant details and behaving in a compulsive manner. That's why there's a lot of argument in that house. The reverse was true for women. Anxiety. Women panic very easily. And the reason why women panic, especially if you're taking care of children or taking care of the household, the reason why you panic easily, because a woman wasn't made to take on all of them duties by herself. She wasn't built that way. A woman was not built to handle every single thing. It's like a man is practical, a woman is emotional. And a woman should be emotional, and a man should be practical. But when you force a woman to be put into the man and woman's role, that's why our Black women suffer from anxiety. It says a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. So the father leaves the house, and then the woman stays. What is she thinking about? What am I going to do with all these kids I got? What am I going to do when something goes wrong? That's why they're consistently yelling and raising their voice. And then by default, if a woman is raising a son, she raises him. Effeminate may seem like it's a strong word, but that's kind of what they become, because what does the son see if the father is gone? He only sees a female interaction. He never sees a male interaction. So he never gets to see what it's like to be a man. And when I'm saying be a man, I ain't talking about, what I mean by that is, so like he never gets to see how his father talks to his mother in a righteous state. Never gets to see how his father handles taking care of the bills, handles cleaning the house, handles dealing with disciplinary actions. So now all he's seeing that is from his mother. And if his mother is suffering from the anxiety, she don't know how to do that. That's what I used to go through with my mother. My mother would get irate or she would yell. That didn't work. And it's not going to work because it's not supposed to be like that. So now it says a nervous disorder characterized by a state of excessive uneasiness and apprehension, typically with compulsive behavior or panic attacks. Black men had aggression and passivity as the most frequent unconscious conflict and high-low self-esteem as the seconds. Again, the order of frequency was reversed for women, for both the men and women. The psychiatrist felt that racism was an important issue to consider in the treatment process and found that rage was related to racism. So now, why do people, don't go to this one yet. Why did they say racism was when it says here, when it says important issue to consider in the treatment, excuse me, when it said the psychiatrist felt racism was an important issue to consider in the treatment process and found that rage was related to racism. Have you ever heard white people say to a Black person, do you hate white people? How many people have seen that on TV or the news or something like that where they've asked y'all that question? So now, when they ask y'all that question, why do you think they're asking y'all that question? Or how do you feel? Does anybody, if y'all don't want to answer, that's okay. But why do you feel they even ask you that question? And is that a question that they should ask Black people? Anybody want to take a shot? The reason why they ask you that question is to put fear in you. It's a fear tactic. Because racism is looked at as something that you're never supposed to be. In America, everybody's supposed to love each other. Everybody's supposed to get along. So the white man gives on the public persona, not the killings that you see and stuff like that, but on the public persona, it's like America is the great. We're about everybody. So when they come and ask you, are you racist? Even though you want to say, yeah, you're afraid to say it because the commercialism of America says that we love everybody. So you can't be a racist. But we should be racist. We should address the real problem, which is what these psychiatrists said. These psychiatrists said in the treatment process and found that rage was related to racism. There was a video The only reason I won't play the video is because the man in the video was a homosexual, and from what I hear, the woman in the video was a lesbian. Did we confirm that?
I have to find out.
I think she was a lesbian, so I won't play the video. But in the video, what that woman said was, the black man lies to the white man every day for come home and give her hell. And lie by saying he likes the white man, smiles in the white man's face, but then when he come home, she gets all the aggression. You know why she gets all that aggression? Because he does hate the white man. Right. But he's afraid to tell the white man that he hates him because that white man controls his job, controls his economic. So when he comes home, he's not afraid of his woman. So because he's not afraid of his woman, she gets the brunt force of the hatred that really should be channeled at the enemy that put them in that condition in the first place. That's why I'm saying the treatment process has to consider the rage and how it relates to racism. Go to the next slide now. So now we have to understand, if I'm saying the cure for the hatred between the black man and the black woman is to resurrect our household, how was our household before what I call the death of our household, the civil rights? Civil rights was probably the worst thing that could ever happen to black people outside of slavery. It's like slavery is number one, integration is the next thing. And you know integration is only pushed on black people, blacks and Hispanics. They're not trying to integrate with Chinese people, Africans, Arabs. There's no integration there. But when it comes to us, everything has to be integrated because that's control. That's racism. Because in that integration, number one, we can't even integrate, just so you know. In order to properly integrate, if you wanted to, you have to have power to deny that. And we don't have power to deny anything. We can't stop white people in the school system. We can't stop white people in our neighborhoods. Like Harlem used to be black. Like I've seen Harlem, like maybe the way Harlem looks now is different than what it looked 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And we had no choice. We could not stop that because we don't have power to do so. But we did have power at one time, and that was before civil rights. And when I'm saying power, power in being united. Them Arabs will unite, strap bombs to fight against the white man. Them Chinese people, there was a cop, a Chinese cop in Brooklyn, New York, and they killed this young brother, a Kai girl. And they actually got the cop convicted. They found him guilty of murder. And them Chinese people came together and made that black district attorney make sure that Chinese cop didn't get no jail time because they was united. When we were united, and let me tell you, every consensus from 1890 to 1950 showed that the black labor force participation rates were higher than those of whites. In 1950, 72% of all black men and 81% of black women had been married. Between 1960 and 1964, blacks were rising into professional and other high-level positions at a rate greater than the 5 years following the passage of the Civil Rights Act. Now, before I read the rest of them, this is all before civil rights. This is all before integration took in full effect. Then this is black men and black women. Were we in the same position? Was black men getting hosed and killed? And when I said black people rather getting hosed and killed? Were white women lying on what black men was doing? Yes, they were. But you know what we did not do? We didn't betray that black woman. We didn't betray that black man. We didn't say, let me go mix with this one. Let me go integrate. We stayed together. And it took somebody like a Martin Luther King, like who loved white women. It took a Bayard Rustic who stayed in the background because he was a homosexual to make homosexuality a part of the Civil Rights Act, which we're suffering the effects of that today. I just saw a meme, not a meme, I just saw this thing with Don Cheadle say he supports trans kids. Trans kids. That guy, Jussie Mollett, was able to, let me tell you, Jussie Mollett lied and said he got beat up by white people. Now, do you think they care that he got beat up by white people and he was black, or because he's gay? It's because he's gay, not because he's black, right? So now, the 1960 consensus showed the first signs of a decline in black marriages with an acceleration in later years. Why? Because this is Martin Luther King started coming around in the 1960s. Who was Martin Luther King's first woman? Who knows? Was she black or white? Who knows? She was white. When Martin Luther King was in college, he loved him, this white woman. I forget her name. Somebody can Google that for me and get her name. He loved that white woman and only got with Coretta Scott King because he was going to be in civil rights, and it would look bad if he had a white woman on his arm. But he loved that white woman in college. This is in the 1960s. Since the 1960s, the black labor force participation rates have been lower than whites, and unemployment rates for blacks 16 and 17-year-olds have never dropped below 20%. Prior to the 1960s, the unemployment rate for blacks 16 and 17 was under 10%. So now you're starting to see the full-out attack on black people. You're seeing a full-out attack on black people because what white people saw was we was together as a family. That black structure was together, so we wouldn't let nobody fail. I remember Samuel L. Jackson said something real important. He said he never went to school with white people till he got to college. In his neighborhood, where he grew up, or his village, you went to school based on your skill set. So you would go and you got taught by your own people. They knew them because that was a village, that was a city, and they was able to stay together. And because they was able to stay together, he was more prepared when he actually came out of that. That's what we need more of. And when they saw that, that's what they started destroying. Then it says before 1960, the number of teenage pregnancies have been decreasing. Both poverty and dependency were declining, and black income was rising in both absolute and relative terms to whites. So before 1960, they started seeing the black household was becoming the most dominant household over the white household. And that's why they started the things we're going to talk about later. In 1965, 76.4% of black children were born to married women, meaning we were together then. Give me the next slide. This is the Mohian report. This report was written by Devil. It's talking about discussing racism. And it says the racist virus in America, in the American bloodstream still affects us. This is going to affect us until the end of time. There'll never be a coming together of black people and white people. It'll never happen. The only thing that we can do is stick with each other and we'll win. It says Negroes will encounter serious and personal prejudice for at least another generation. Now, this was written in the 60s. If y'all know anything, this generation must be every single generation that happens. It's never going to change. Centuries of sometimes unimaginable mistreatment have taken their toll on the Negro people. The harsh fact is that as a group, at the present time, in terms of ability to win out in the competitions of American life, they are not equal to most of the groups with which they will be competing. Who knows why we won't be equal? Are we not equal because we're intellectually slower or physically slower? Or are things put in position against us is the problem? Who's the number one? What is, I think I almost gave it an answer. What's the number one commodity in America? Who knows the answer? Brother? Okay. Yeah. We are. We are the number one commodity. It ain't oil, it ain't cattle, it ain't chicken. Black people. When they want to sell a nation goods, they tell them Chinese people, man, you come on over here and go in the black neighborhood. We got the black neighborhood set up just so perfect where you'll make about $10,000 a week. They're not going to go to their black stores because we forgot what it was like to support each other. They tell them Arabs, you get your Crown Chicken stores. Now, who made chicken better than us? Nobody. But the Arabs put them Crown Chicken stores, and we go right in them chicken stores. We go right in every store they put in there. When we get our money, we don't even think about supporting a black business. We think right about going to their stores. That's why, because of the provisions they put in place. It says individually, Negro Americans reach highest peaks of achievement. So you have Negroes or blacks that have financial wealth individually, but collectively in the spectrum of regional groups, Negroes are among the weakest. I remember a couple of years ago, Donald Sterling has said some derogatory things about black people, and everybody got mad at him. And he chastised and actually cut celebrities because he said, Because Magic Johnson and all of them was talking about him. He said Magic Johnson don't care about black people. He wants to play golf with me. He said, in my culture, because he's emulating us, he's emulating Israel. He said, in my culture, we wouldn't have poor people. We would loan them money and then work out when they're supposed to pay for us. Magic Johnson don't do that. And they don't. That's why it says individually we can reach the highest peace. But collectively, we won't. As a nation, we are responsible for us. We look for a handout from the so-called white man, but collectively, we're supposed to build ourselves up. We're not supposed to be that dependent on another nation where we can't survive ourselves. You can give me the next slide. The fundamental problem in which this is most clearly the case is that of the family structure. Everything starts and stops. That's why every device they have, if they ain't trying to kill our babies with Planned Parenthood, they're trying the feminist movement to get the man out the house, or they teaching the man to have such hatred that he's just gone anyway. The family structure is evident. It says the evidence not final, but powerfully persuasive, is that the Negro family in the urban ghettos is crumbling. This is what they saw in 1965. 1 year after the Civil Rights Bill came into effect. So y'all seen all of the statistics that I showed before the 60s of how the black family structure was together, how we wasn't divided. Soon as civil rights came in, we start getting destroyed. This quote from the Harlem Youth Opportunities Unlimited, it says, after an intense study of the life in Central Harlem, the board summed up their findings in one statement: massive deterioration of the fabric of society and its institutions. Give me the next slide. At the heart of that deterioration of the fabric of the Negro society is the deterioration of the Negro family. Without a black family, we don't have black people. All we have is just scavengers. That's why when you look in the ghetto, you just see people trying to survive because we're not united. It said it is the fundamental source of the weakness of the Negro community at the present time. The role of the family in shaping character and ability is so pervasive as to be easily overlooked. Like, we're so used to, it's almost like the norm to see a woman as a single parent or a brother as a single parent. It's so not the norm that when you see a black family together, it's looked at like it's applauded. It's applauded, it's hand clapped because you don't see it no more. And it says the family is the basic social unit in American life. It is the basic socializing unit. By and large, adult conduct in society is learned as a child. Like I said in the beginning, imagine that son that doesn't see his father anymore, or he sees a promiscuous woman, his mother is promiscuous. He's gonna grow up with that concept as a child. And so he may mistreat women because of what he's seen as a child. He may leave his kids because of what he's seen as a child. Every woman, every child, every black child's first love is their mama. Like, they looking at their mama, and that's more likely the gauge of how they're gonna pick their women. And if that mother is not raising properly, or he don't see the interaction between how she acts with her husband, he's just learning on the job training. Same thing for a daughter. A daughter's first love is going to be her father. Now, if she ain't got no father, how is she ever going to see how she's supposed to be as a wife? How she's supposed to act if she never sees interaction between her mother and her father? That's why it says, by and large, adult conduct in society is learned as a child. A fundamental insight of psychoanalytic theory, for example, is that the child learns a way of looking at life in his early years, which is what I was explaining, through which all later experience is viewed and which profoundly shapes his adult conduct. Mark 3:27 says, no man can enter into a strong man's house and spoils his good except he will first bind the strong man. The first thing that the white man did was get rid of us black men. And the first thing we got to do is take that household back. And when we go take that household back, black women, get out the way. Get out the way, or get on the passenger side. Like, we drive the car, y'all just sit right here and just ride shotgun. And let us ride, and I guarantee you it starts fixing. Give me the next slide. What are some of the things put in place? You got the feminist movement, which we'll discuss. That Gloria Steinem and her counterpart, Angela Davis, who was a big dyke, she's famous for that afro. She was a lesbian. The dyke is too hard. That's right. She was a lesbian, and Gloria Steinem set it up to kick black men. It was almost like two forms of feminist movement. You had the white feminist movement and the black feminist movement. The white feminist movement, all they was concerned about was they didn't want to have to cook. They didn't want to sit at home all day. They wanted to get in the workforce. The black feminist movement, you don't need no man in the house. Get rid of that man. We'll give you government assistance. And then the government became your husband. That's why all y'all want to marry Jesus today, because you done kicked the man out the house. That's just true. It says the employment of black women in higher paying jobs than black men is another form. You can't have a society where everything is predicated on the breadwinner, specifically the man has to be the breadwinner. You take him out from being able to get a stable job and then give his woman the job and then expect that household to be okay. Because he's automatically going to feel some type of way because he's going to psychologically feel inferior to her. And she's going to psychologically feel superior to her. So now you're putting a divide in the house. Number one, money does not make a marriage work. It never will. If you're not together under the orders of the Most High, that marriage won't work at all. But money does not make it work. I done been poor. I done been rich. I had one relationship I've been in for 19 years. That was not together for 19 years because of any money. It was under a certain order that you had to be in. The welfare system, in regards to how blacks are treated. Because in order for black women to get assistance, they had to have damn near no interaction with black men, which we'll show you. And then the so-called war on drugs, you know, Ronald Reagan and Nancy had the videos where they're against drugs, but then right after the commercials over, he called Contra, make sure they're getting the drugs in. These things birthed the separation of the black household and had one culprit pushing this the entire time, which is the so-called white man. Keep going to the next slide. So now, I'm going to play a couple of videos addressing each thing that I put the tab in. So one of the first things was the feminist movement. This is one of my favorites right here, Shahara Ali. Can you play that clip, please?
On the liberation movement, we don't have anything to do with that. We have not been under the control of the black man for over 500 years, so what do we have to get rid of?
You can play a little bit more of that. Let me tell you, can you rewind that? Can you rewind that and play that again, please? And yeah, bring it back and play it again from the beginning.
On the liberation movement, we don't have anything to do with that. We have not been under the control of the black man for over 500 years, so what do we have to get liberated from it from?
Pause that. You heard what she said? She said, we have not been under the control of the black man for 500 years. What do we have to get liberated from? That's what she said. And she's telling the truth. Have we actually been allowed to be in charge of not just our black women, but our very black life since we've been here? No, we have not. So black woman, I even want to know, when you say liberated or free, what do you mean? And then when you're getting free from the black man, you're subjecting yourself unto a government of system that was never made for you and doesn't love you in the first place. Keep playing.
They haven't been our folks. That's the white woman and her man. They're going through that, and that's their business.
Pause that. That's something we got to learn too. We got to stop getting involved in white folk problems. When the white man sad, we sad. When the white man angry, we angry. When he happy, we happy. But when something happens with us, we find every excuse not to be down with that. You know what I mean? Whether it's like entertainers or anything like that, with that whole Gucci thing, and you got people that's actually on the fence saying we shouldn't be mad at them. White people would never do that. They're united in who they hate, and they're united in who they love. And they're united in the hatred of us. That's why Gucci does what they do. That's why every race does what they do to us, because they're united against us. Play more? Any more of that?
Well, how many business being in that? They only introduced it to break down the civil rights movement. Civil rights movement started with the black man, black woman, and black child standing together, trying to plead for freedom, justice, and equality, and more benefits in the country that they have now given.
They threw the white woman in there with the women's liberation movement and made it a woman against man thing. That created a big separation between black men and black women because then everybody started going for South. Then they bring the welfare system in and tell us in order to feed and clothe and house our children, we have to give up our man. We have to put the man out of the house. When the white farm wife goes to the government for subsidy for the farm, they don't tell her to get rid of the farmer. They keep that family young.
Pause it. You see the difference? She clearly, and that's the truth, you know. Only in the black community, when you go to get government assistance, does the father have to be out the picture. That's not the case with white folk. What she's saying is true. Play the next one.
You say briefly, once again, how does white supremacy power reach into that home, that African American home?
Well, I keep, you know, again,
Pause it for 1 second. If I could, if y'all ever watched this black man in this video pissed me off the whole video because he kept messing with her. That's why when she's talking, it's like she's saying the same thing, but the brother don't want to accept the answer because he has the same divided problem that we face, where instead of joining her in what she's saying, he's fighting her. But
see, by attacking the father, the primary breadwinner, you see, you control the housing that is available, you control the health care that is available. You see, by paying a person a substantially low wage, or by comparison. You see, you can raise all kinds of havoc. You can raise havoc by having the black female able to advance on a job at a faster rate than her male counterpart. You see, that raises all kinds of havoc in a system that says, well, the male is supposed to be the head of the household.
again, these are things that were said in the 70s. We got another one, right? Play that one. And the only reason I'm putting them back to back like that is because I didn't want to just name them. I wanted you to see a visual representation of the things that I said was a problem. Excuse me. Play this one. Now, this is the movie Claudine, I believe, right?
Right.
Y'all familiar with this?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Good play.
Welfare man.
Now, this is after she getting government assistance now, but she got a man. Now, here's what she has to do in order to get that government assistance. And this is what the black woman chose, or how the black woman chose to live instead of living with her father, her husband. Play it. She got to hide everything. Now y'all see how many kids she got in the house? Now she'd rather have all them kids in that house by herself, hide everything, instead of be with her man to get assistance. This is what America forces us to do. Play it. Hey, I paused for a second. You see how they about to start smiling in the face? That's what I was saying earlier when that sister said, you be hating the white man, but you smiling in his face to get the trinkets that he wants to give. They're about to smooth front, smile like they love this white woman, but they don't. Right? Excuse me, if I could. That's psychologically destroying us. Can you imagine having to smile in front of somebody that you hate all the time? You know what you're gonna do? Take that aggression out somewhere else. If I could, I listened to comedy. I listened to Richard Pryor when I was younger. Richard Pryor said, can you imagine you work for all day, all week, you get paid, you make like $100 if you're lucky, you go out with your old lady, and when you go out, the cops pull you over, and they say, we saw a black man look just like you, and they search you, strip you down, or whatever like that. He said, now what black man want to go out after getting violated like that? He said, you go home and beat your kids. Now, he made that as a joke, but that's the truth. Because you be oppressed, you take that anger out on somebody else. So the ass whooping that child got wasn't even his. It was because of what the oppression that the white man put on him which is what's translated every day. All right, play it.
Children, would you cut that music down? Hello, Mrs. Fry. Hi. How you been? Oh, great. Like a queen. I said you've been working. No, because if you have, I really have to know. Otherwise, you get into trouble. No, I ain't been working. Surprise, you know.
You can't work. You can't do
To be
nothing.
honest with you, I ain't been working. Well, I understand Matt's been visiting you regularly this past month. You are not supposed to spy on us. I didn't spy on you, Mrs. Price, but someone has. It must be that bitch across the street. She'll say anything, that bitch. The thing is, Mrs. Price, if something comes out.
Who do y'all think? Now, I'm only using this word. I don't use this word normally, but who do y'all think the bitch is she's talking about? A black woman. That's the hatred we start developing for each other. So you got the black woman telling her on her because we developed that hatred. And who are they trying to please? This devil. She should be the real bitch in this scenario. Excuse my language. I don't use the words normally. So, yeah.
I'm in all kinds of trouble, so if you've been seeing this man. What is this? Am I not supposed to see a man? What am I, a damn nut? No, but if you've been sleeping with a man and he's been giving you things, I'm sorry, but I have to know. Do you sleep with a man? Now that's none of your business. It's none of your business either. You're wrong, Mrs. Price. It is our business. This man may be flinging things into your home which you may not be deducting. Now you know I have to deduct you those things. What things? What things, damn it? You have a man come over for dinner, he brings you a bottle of wine. I have a man come over for dinner, he brings me a damn six-pack. Oh, there are two left, Miss Taylor. Would you like a beer? I'm sorry, Mrs. Price. I'm sorry, too. I figured it out. It comes to about $1.35. He brings my kids some soda. That's about 80 cents.
And she writing it down. Look.
Figuring that comes to about $2.15, Miss Taylor. That's plus tax. You tell me that only gets you $2.15. How much do you get?
And that's how we should live. That's what the feminist movement brought. Now, one more video. So now, remember we was talking in the beginning where it was like 74% of black women were married with child, meaning we were more together as a family structure. One of the other things they would do with Planned Parenthood is tell women that they didn't need a man. So we went from being around with our kids to this. Play this clip.
Raise your hand if you're married. None of you are married. Raise your hand in the 80s.
This is in the 80s. These are all black women. Go ahead.
Married to your baby's father. One. The rest of you who don't plan to get married. Why don't you plan to get married? I'd like to know that.
Now, hold on for a second. You know why they laughed? Because they said, how many of y'all are with the father? And they all laughed like it was a joke. When they should be taught not to lay with a man unless you're going to marry that man. Right. Like, how is it not a joke to just sleep with random women? Like, you shouldn't be sleeping with random men and for sure getting pregnant and then making sure they're not there. Now, watch the answer that they have. Read.
You have your child to think about, and then a whole family to care for. You know, it's a lot of responsibility. And then you don't want the commitments. I don't want all that movie.
You know what she said? You don't want the commitment. This is what our children are raised on, to believe that you have the child, but you don't want the commitment to the man. What do you think the results of these kids are going to be? They're going to do the same thing, but they're not going to care if the father or mother's around. Then that generation, and then that generation, and then we have a bunch of zombies in 2019. Play it.
Yeah, because I think I can make it as a single parent.
But don't you think you might need help in raising that baby from a man?
Not really. I didn't have a father. My father was.
She said she didn't have a father. Again, remember earlier when it talks about when in the beginning of the lecture, when I played that how it's in our DNA generationally. Generationally, our fathers will be separated from us. Our mothers would be separated from us. They would separate the kids, they would separate the parents through selling them. And that's the psychosis that we believe we can carry to this day. That was the point of putting it in there. So where we think that it's natural to not have to have both parents around. Keep going.
So, it really, male figures are not substantially important in the family.
Now, who can take care? She said male figures are not substantially important. Do we not need male figures today? So now it says, what changed the equation? By the 1960s, American society was riddled with generations of white guilt and reaction and repentance sparked by Dr. King's nonviolent civil disobedience and the system introspection of social norms by whites. Americans overcompensating with sweeping entitlement programs under President Johnson's war on poverty, which the war on poverty was supposed to be about making it better for us. And it says, and by turning a blind eye to the accountability on long-standing values and principled behavior within the African-American community. So the war on poverty would be the feminist movement, for example, where we're sorry what happened to you, so we're going to give you government assistance, but you can't be married. Your father can't be in the picture. Those are examples of how they would use that so-called program to destroy us. It says, while affirmative action and desegregation jump-started social change, the unintended consequences of shifting the cultural incentives upside down were ignored, meaning they started making it more about a so-called job or so-called equal rights, but destroyed the family structure in the household. That's why it says this destabilization has created turbulent neighborhoods that have devastating costs to children, ranging from poverty, educational deficiencies, violence, crimes, drugs, and a culture of victimization and entitlement, meaning we want to get it all now with no work, but we don't want to address all of these things. Listen, we are educationally deficient, we commit violence, we commit crime, drugs, we commit all of those things, and we won't address the root of the problem. The root of the problem is the feminist movement. Is that war on drugs? Like drugs, what bugs me out about drugs coming into the truth and having a different understanding is that I remember when I was a kid and we used to see the drug dealer driving down with that car, that was like the flyest thing. And he played the music and all of that. But then as I got older, I realized the reason why my father wasn't there was because of that drug dealer that sold him that drug. The reason why your mama wasn't there, your father wasn't there, was because of the drug dealer, but we don't want to address that. And we don't want to address the man that put that in place for us, which was the so-called white man. It says basic developmental psychology tells us that boys and girls growing up without fathers and stable homes are overwhelmingly more likely to lack self-discipline and personal responsibility than children growing up with married parents. The economic, emotional, and spiritual guidance that two-parent families provide are the cornerstones of effective family institutions. You look at families where they grew up with both their parents and the children are able to see that interaction, they're far better than ones that are not. And it says without that stability, institutional collapse is imminent. Meaning it's going to go bad the minute that you don't have this. If you don't have stability, if you don't have institutionalized structure, the collapse is imminent. Because we decided that it was better to live under the white man's government, when I'm saying government, I'm talking about his drug government, his feminist government, his Planned Parenthood government, his religious government. Lamentations 4:20 says the breath of our nostrils, the anointed of the Most High, meaning that's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be the Lord's anointed. We're supposed to be holy, which means separate. But it says it was taken in their pits of whom said under his shadow, we will live among the heathen. Like we chose to live, you give me the next slide. We chose to live under the white man's umbrella, and we've died under it. We've suffered under it. Our kids are destroyed. Our families are destroyed. In 1980, 31% of all Black firstborn children were born to teenage mothers. By 92, 54% of all Black children were living only with their mothers. In the 1980s and 90s, an absolute majority of those Black families with no husband present lived in poverty. From 1990 to 94, 77% of first births to Black women were premarital. By the 2000s, 75% of Blacks with a high school degree or some college were not married. In 2005, Black people accounted for 13% of the total U.S. population, yet they were the victims of 49% of all the nation's murders, and 93% of black murder victims were likely killed by other black people. All of these are a ripple effect of the attack that the white man has put on us. Now, does that negate what we've done? It's not about negating what we've done, but it's about owning up to the responsibility, pointing out where the problem is at, and then fixing that problem. If we don't accept the role that we played in this, we'll have to do more lectures, we'll have to do more speakings. At some point, we have to take accountability for what we've done. It says less than half of the black students graduated from high school in 2005. In 2009, 73% of black children were born to unmarried mothers. Between 1960 and 1964, blacks were rising in professional and other high-level positions at a rate greater than 5 years following the passage of the Civil Rights Act. So before the Civil Rights Act, we was in a great position. After the Civil Rights Act, which was supposed to be better, because civil rights was about us. You can give me the next slide, guys. The civil rights was supposed to be about us being equal, us being better, us growing, but in reality, it destroyed us because it took away the one quintessential thing that no race can live without, and that's a household structure. When you look at the Arabs, when you look at Africans, when you look at Chinese, Japanese, whites, when you look at all of them, the most important thing for them is the family structure. That white feminist movement they never wanted their husbands out of the house, ever. They just wanted a better job. It was only with us that they wanted something different. It says, since the black illegitimacy rate is so high, these pathologies plague blacks more than they affect any other demographic. Even if a white person were to become morally rejuvenated tomorrow, writes black economist and Professor Walter E. Williams, it would do nothing for problems plaguing a large segment of the black community. The illegitimacy, the family breakdown, crime, and fraudulent education are devastating problems, but they are not civil rights problems. The reason why it says they are not civil rights problems is kind of like oxymoronic, because the civil rights is what caused it, but the reason why that's there is because we don't need civil rights to fix it. We need anti-civil rights to fix it. We need to look at separating from what has been the plague. And then we can look at these statistics of before civil rights, before integration, and then look at the statistics after that. The only way we can survive in this war is if we are united and separated from them. And if you notice, the economics, we don't run no economics. We don't run the businesses. We don't run the corporations or nothing like that. But before the civil rights, we was better than white people, which lets you know what were they doing back then. They were in economic power, but that power, the results of that power or that economic, that financial, went to our people. It didn't go to them. That's why they chose to destroy us. So by no means are we saying you can't have your economic power that you have, but your love have to go to your people. You have to be anti-civil rights. It says it bears to mention that the astronomical illegitimacy rate among African Americans is a relatively recent phenomenon. As late as 1950, black women nationwide were more likely to be married than white women. Like white women, hey, you think they like the fact that black women had their husbands with them when they did not? But now, and it says only 9% of black families with children were headed by a single parent. In the 1950s, black children had a 52% chance of living with both their biological parents until age 17. By the 1980s, it dwindled down to a mere 6%. In 1959, only 2% of black children were reared in households in which the mother never married. Today, that figure approaches 60%. Y'all wonder why I do this lecture? Because that's what's been attacked. And that's the one thing that I don't see. I never see, you give me the next slide, I never see nobody pull out statistics of what we used to be like. Because it almost acts like it did not exist when it did exist. When you talk about a Black Wall Street, Black Wall Street, Rosewood, Chicago, DC, none of them get established if we're not selfish. What I mean by selfish means selfish where I can only be with black people. Because if I be with white people, I'm destroyed. If I mix with my enemy, they're gonna kill me. If I whistle at this woman, my whole family is gonna be raped or destroyed or something like that. Like they burned Rosewood down over a white woman's lie. So now the only way we can survive, and what happens is because you got to go to war, you get tired of that fight. And you can't get tired of that fight in the war. Because that happens, now we try to look for a solution where I ain't got to die. And so now we think survival. When the white man gonna kill us regardless, it don't matter whether it's abortion, murder, killing, putting you in prison, he's going to do it. It says children in single parent households are raised not only with an economic, but also psychosocial and psychological disadvantages. For instance, they are 4 times as likely as children from intact families to be abused or neglected. Because a single parent household, you're not going to be able to keep up with everything. So abuse ain't just physical abuse, ain't just sexual abuse. It's mental, because a lot of times you get yelled at because the mother ain't there, the father raising. And so he taking out his frustration on the child, or the mother's taking out her frustration on the child. That's where the abuse comes. Or you get neglected. So because you hate your man, you hate the kids, because every time you're looking at the kid, you see him. So now you just get neglected that way. And it says much likely to have trouble academically, twice as prone to drop out of school, 3 times more likely to have behavioral problems, much more apt to experience emotional disorders, far likelier to have a weak sense of right and wrong, meaning not caring. You develop something where you just don't care what happens to you or other people because you feel nobody cared for you, specifically your mother didn't care or your father didn't care. That's why it says far likely to have a sense of right or wrong. Significantly less able to delay gratification, to control their violent or sexual impulses, which is why there's so much violence and sex amongst our kids today, because they grew up without a family structure. 2.5 times likely to be sexually active as teens. How many children do we know having sex at such a young age? I was talking to one of my sons, and I asked him about meeting a girl, because he in high school. He's like, he don't want to be with none of them girls in high school, because they ran through. And I'm like, you in high school telling me about girls that are ran through because we don't have a black structure. I'm just thankful he ain't trying to run through them. I was actually proud of him. It says approximately twice as likely to conceive children out of wedlock when they are teens or young adults, and 3 times likely to be on welfare when they reach adulthood. Give me the next slide. These are children we're talking about. The definition of psychotherapy: the treatment of mental or emotional disorders of or related to biological ills. Remember, I brought this up earlier, it goes to how we fix the problem. You need psychotherapy in order to fix the problem. Almost like when they would take a woman that's been raped, you almost have to face the event in order to get over it. And so black men and black women, we have been raped since we've been in America. If you're born black, Hispanic, and Native Indian, you've been raped the minute you came out your mama's womb. And the only answer is to address it psychologically. Keep going. So now the first thing that I always suggest is that we get counseling. Some of the advices that I give to people, and these are scriptures, this is in the Apocrypha for the book of Ecclesiastes. It says, give not thy mind over the heaviness, and afflict not thyself in the time of thy own counsel. Like, what you have to realize, when you see this one here, it says, every counselor extolleth counsel, but there is some that counsel it for himself. This is the so-called white man in this context. When the white man gives you counsel or gives you help, it's never to help you. He came to that black woman with that feminist movement as a counselor. Oh, you struggling? I can help you. But in order to help you, you can't have the man in the house. In order for this assistance, you can't get no extra money. I have to know what you're bringing into the house. And because that woman doesn't have the counsel that she needs, she listens to that. And then we end up being destroyed from that. Down here at the bottom, it says, be at peace with many, nevertheless have but one counselor of 1,000. And then it says, do nothing without advice, and when thou hast done so, repent not. Like black people, you give me the next slide, like black people need to face that we've just dropped the ball. Right. So then after you say, okay, Tazaryach, you say we dropped the ball, so how do we fix it? This big ass book I got right here. It's just heavy too. This Bible right here, that's in every house, that's the cure. If y'all want to know what the cure for the destruction between the black household is this big old Oxford Bible right here. That's in everybody's house. This is the manual that we all need. Without this, I don't want to hold this no more. I got a cross in the front slide. Now, slide. We have to face, like this book has the do's and don'ts. Deuteronomy 28:1 says that we serve the Most High, keep his law, statute, commandments, we would be above all nations on the face of the planet. So imagine if the Most High, he's the Father, so he's talking to his children. And he says, if y'all do everything I ask y'all, y'all will be above everybody. You'll be first in everything. You'll rule everything. That sounds good as hell. And then he gives you the flip side. Now, if you don't listen to me, you'll be at the bottom. You'll be destroyed. Wouldn't any father do that? If the Most High didn't do it, I wouldn't even serve him. I wouldn't even follow him. But I know that by following him, I'll be healed. The other thing we need is this word right here, compassion. Compassion is the one thing that the black man and black woman do not have for each other. The minute a black woman talks about a black man, it's usually derogatory and vice versa. Because the definition of compassion is sympathetic consciousness of the other's distress together with the desire to alleviate it. So compassion ain't just a word you just say, yeah, I care for the black man. Do you have a sympathetic consciousness for what he's been through? And it says of the other's distress, which is what the black man and black woman has been under since we've been in America. We've been under distress and we've been under attack. And together, not divided. So the black man and black woman have to together have a desire to alleviate it. In the Israelite School UPK, that's the goal. The goal is to have a sympathetic conscience of others' distress together with the desire to alleviate it. What does the Most High say about it? He said, in 3 things I was beautified. This is so important. Let me get my laser. In 3 things I was beautified and stood up beautiful before the Most High and men. The unity of brethren. That's what black men have to have as well. The unity of brethren will destroy anything on the face of the planet. It says the love of neighbors and a man and wife that agree together. This is what doesn't take place, a man and wife agreeing together. Ecclesiastes 40:23, it says, a friend and companion never meet amiss, but above both is a wife with her husband. You can't have one without the other. Give me the next slide. This is black marriage. This is where black men fail. Black men, you are failing. Now see, when I say failing, okay, this is black marriage in 2017. This is who black men married. 85% have a black wife. That's pretty good, right? 83% of 93% have a black husband. Now, the reason why I bring this out is because we are married. We just need to marry more. This is where I say black men have failed. This is interracial. How many black men and women have married out? You know, we always like to vilify, like we see Serena Williams. She loved tearing down black men, right? But in reality, black men tear down black women more than black women do, because we marry white women at an alarming rate, because we do that. So we fail at that job. And we have to admit that we fail at that job. You can give me the next slide, Constance. It is also believed that a large percentage of black men marry white women. This is often cited as one of the causes of lower marriage rates among black women. This, however, is only partially true. While black men marry white women at twice the rate that black women marry white men, this is important. So we can stop blaming black women for this problem. This is our problem. If I could solve it, I would go to Indiana sometimes. There's this city, and in that city, every interracial couple I see is a black man with a white dog. I mean, and the ugliest white dog you can find. They're fat, nasty look. I mean, look dirty. I mean, looking like that's the best you can find. Like that's the white woman. The white woman you're gonna be with is that white woman. So it'll be off the chain. It says white men in 27, only 15% of black men were married to non-black women, which is up from 11% in 2010. The Pew Research Center released a report finding that 25% of black male newlyweds in 2013 married non-black women compared to 12% of black women. So what I will say is black women, y'all winning that job. One thing I will do, even the next slide, one thing I will say is that a black woman will stay with a black man longer than a black man would stay with a black woman. Now, of course, education comes from the scriptures. And Deuteronomy 7:3 says, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. For they would turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. You know, it's only natural if you marry anyone, it's only natural to pick up on whatever cultures or beliefs or whatever they have, because you're becoming one flesh. So it's natural to do that. So you a black man, you marry a white woman, you're going to naturally pick up on Christmas and all the other garbage and stuff that they follow. That's why the Lord said to do it. And here's why. It says, so the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly, which is what happens to us. You give it the next slide. You give it the next slide. Now, so what are the things that the black man and the black woman can do to put in place? Ephesians 5:22, which is why I love these scriptures. Like the psychotherapy is right there in the scriptures. It says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. Meaning when you see your husband, you seeing your Lord, period. It don't get no better than that. It don't get no greater than that. And the one that you say you're married to, the Lord, he the one said it. He don't want to be married to you. I should just let you know that as well. Ephesians 5:23 says, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the savior of that body. So the husband, you're supposed to be the head of that woman and guide her, and not guide her or teach her an evil lesson against yourself. You're supposed to be the one to give her discipline, instruction, and so forth, and that woman is supposed to back you up in that. 1 Peter 3:1 says, likewise, ye wives, be in subjection unto your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wives. There's a conversation you can have with your husband, but he won't listen to nothing that you say. That's usually the one where you beating him down, or you yelling at him, and you argue with him. But then there's a conversation you can have that's sweet, that's touching, that's loving. I've never had a woman talk sweet to me and I not listen to what she said. But a woman that says some evil things to me, I either hang up, block her, don't listen to her, or go in one ear and out the other. And it says, and that's why verse 2 says, while they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear, because as you're talking sweet and loving, they're listening and they're attentive because of the way you're speaking to them, because of the way you're coming at them. We don't have to come at each other with the aggression that we normally have. Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as the weaker vessel. Now, when people say the weaker vessel, you can't tell that to a black woman today. You can't tell a black woman she's weak. But it's not talking about weak like you dumb or stupid or anything like that. It's only talking about in the original instruction up here, which says the husband is the head of the wife. It doesn't mean that the wife has doesn't have a good idea. It doesn't mean that the wife doesn't bring nothing onto the table. But in the structure of things, in the knowledge given, the man was put to be in charge, and the woman was put to be the support. And that's why it says, and as being heirs together. This completion is the completion of you two. If a woman is weak in your eyes, that means you failed at the job for the husband. And if the man is not strong, that means you failed as a wife, because you're heirs together. You're in charge of it together. Give me the next slide. So now, what are some of the things that we do? We must acknowledge that the well-intentioned social life have uprooted traditional cultures and incentives, meaning the well-intentioned, meaning on the premise, so to speak, we thought civil rights was a great idea. The feminist movement was a great idea. We thought that that was the way to fix the problems in the black household. But what we have to acknowledge, what I would like to add, is that there was never a problem with the traditional cultural incentives. You know, there was never a problem with coming up in a normal black structure, in a normal black man, black woman, the children, and that culture, because we was turning the corner. So really, we have to recognize that those well-intentions have uprooted the traditional cultural incentives and legitimized an entitlement attitude that is counterproductive and actually harms our children. Because at some point, the elders or the older people, we're all going to die at some point, and our children are going to come up after us. So if our children are the ones that come up after us, they have to be the ones that we prepare to take care of their children. So we're not preparing them to take care of their children by what they observe from us. We'll never stop this cycle. It says we will stop ignoring bad behavior and choices in the African American community, discriminating between proper and bad behavior as legitimate judgment. It is not discrimination or bigotry. Basic psychology tells us that when you're allowed to get away with and are rewarded for bad behavior, you reinforce and get more progressively worse, and that harms the children. This goes right back into everything. We cannot reward, because you can have success stories in feminism or civil rights or something like that. We can't ignore the bigger picture. That's why at the beginning of the lecture, the article read that you can have individual success stories, but overall we're destroyed as a race. That's this here. So you can have individual success, but overall we've been destroyed by these devices that have been put in place. So it's almost like we got to wipe the whole slate clean and start from the ground up in order to fix the problem. It says there must be an admission that clinging to a counterproductive culture that is supposedly authentic in the name of group pride or to avoid self-reliance and personal responsibility is not only historically incorrect. Why does it say historically incorrect? Because history tells us, based on the stats that I gave you, that we were better when we were traditional. When we grew up in a traditional sense, we were better. We add this Bible in place, we'll be undefeatable. So it says it's historically incorrect, it harms the children. Thomas Sowell has shown that no group has ever successfully improved their circumstances by doing so. By not going back to a traditional sense, we would not go anywhere else. Give me the next slide. Lastly, the African American community, with or without the civil rights establishment, must acknowledge and demand that the family is and will ever be the originator and primary transmitter of social capital. Meaning our growth starts with the family. The values and character traits that enable children of becoming adults to seize opportunities and become productive citizens. Toxic role models that guide children into a culture of destructive behaviors must be challenged. Toxic, as an example, them women that were saying you didn't need a man, imagine children and children and children coming from that. That's the toxic role model. So where they're looking at that. In short, if the family structure is the primary predictor of an individual's life chances, and if family disintegration is the principal cause of the transmission of poverty and despair in the Black community over the last 50 years, then the family integration will stabilize the institution and offer our children hope. Can you go to the next slide? That's it. Okay, with that, I'd like to thank y'all for coming out to today's lecture that I did on this education. Are there any questions? Are there any questions in the room? I'll take some questions before we close. They got food, I believe, for y'all to eat and drink. Are there any questions in the room? Yeah, brother. You said what trait should you have to be a strong man? As a husband? When you want to take on a husband, what do you think about when you want to be a husband? She just pretty or something like that? I'm just asking, not it's like a general question. It's like, do you think she's pretty or something like that? I would hope she's pretty. Right. Right. Never judge a marriage on that. You want to judge, like 10 years from now, can I be with this woman? You know what I mean? You want to think about the children that you're going to have. You want to think about when it comes to disciplining my kids, will I be able to do that? You want to think about your own childhood to see what problems you faced in your childhood, so that way you don't let them come into your life. Like my father, I use myself as an example. My father was mentally abusive to me, right? So when I realized I was going to start having kids, I had to make sure that I did not mentally abuse my kids in that manner. So you kind of have to face yourself there. That's where I would start. All right. Any other questions?
I remember you had mentioned how you said if the wife is weak and the husband is failing. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah, your wife is like your flower, so to speak. So when you got that flower, you know, it starts in the dirt. Like if you had a plant, you got that flower, and you have to water that flower. So if you're not watering that flower won't grow at all, or it might grow just a little bit. And it's all based off the information that you give her. So if that woman is weak in anything, you are the one that have to give her that instruction. And if you're failing at giving her that instruction, it is your fault. Right?
So what if she was to like reject that? Husband was rejected.
When you say rejected, what do you mean?
Like if they wasn't love coming up, they don't know how to take it. So
Right.
you try to give it to them, they'll try to reject it or push it away.
So now what you should do, let's say how you just said, you said if she wasn't used to love because of the way she came up, right? You should try to find what the root cause of why she's that way. Because again, that's your flower. So you got to now find out what caused her to be this way and then treat her. Find out what the root was. Let's say if she was molested or abused or bothered. You got to kind of get to the root of that problem. Find out how many sex partners she had. And depending on how many sex partners she had, because you know, scientifically, a woman was not designed for that. So when you lay with multiple men, that bothers you. So you really got to get in the psychosis of that woman and then nurture her, is what you have to do. That's why it's important if you're going to take on a wife or a husband, you got to take on the serious responsibility that comes with that. Any other questions?
So I guess in a sense it's important to listen to what you're saying. It's important for a man to get involved and actually learn the scriptures, to teach his wife.
Absolutely.
To build that family.
Absolutely. Because as you learn in the scriptures, you know what you'll be tearing down within yourself, all the problems you got too. So you'll be getting rid of all them problems. You can't fix somebody if you ain't fixed your problem. So once you fix your problem, then you're ready. Like you be thinking you're ready for a woman, you be thinking you're ready for a man, but you ain't never addressed the problems within yourself. And then once you fix that problem, then you can fix another problem.
So let me ask you this a question. So how do you say, like, I guess this made me jump off in the sense where we seem to think that, okay, why should I read the Bible? Because we think that it's written by a white man or whatever like that. How do you get past that thought?
Like Christ said in Luke the 5th chapter, he said, no man put new wine into old bottles. You must first pour out that old wine in order to be able to receive new wine. So when it comes to that book, like I was saying in the beginning, we all thought it was a white man's book. So sometimes to show that it's not a white man's book, we show color in the Bible. So you can see it's a black man's book. Or they'll say God loves everybody. That's one of the things they say the white man say. So we show them how God don't love everybody. The only thing that you can do is not run from the truth of the Bible, but show them that what they was taught about the Bible was just a lie and to wake them up. It's just like teaching in class. That's what you would have to do. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, you spoke about the solutions for problems within a marriage would be, one of the things would be psychotherapy for like marital counseling. Mm-hmm. So do you have like a certain pattern of how you go about the counseling for your sessions that you speak about?
Me personally?
Yes.
What I try to do is I listen to both sides, depending on who called for the counseling. So if the wife called first, then the wife would talk first, or if the husband called first. And so I try to listen to what is the root cause between the two of them. I ask them questions like, how did they meet? How did they come together? I may ask the wife, how was your family upbringing? And as I'm listening to that, I'm hearing what could be the cause of why she's treating him like that or why he's treating her like that. You got to study for it. Counseling is not for everybody. You got to get into like psychology books. You got to get into psychotherapy books. You got to really take it serious in order to really understand it, because you want to make sure you're listening. What they're saying something behind what they're saying. Like they could be talking about something that's really an issue they had with their father, because their father wasn't around. So you got to be able to pick up on that so that you can give a proper answer. So it's kind of different with each counseling session, but that's how I look at it. Yes.
When you think of the Bible and you say of the cross, and he said, let me put this down, why did you do that?
Because the cross, that's, Christ wasn't the only one that died on the cross. That's like a Christian symbol. You know what I mean? That was just the way they killed the Romans and stuff like that. So I just don't like the cross. That's all. No.
You say a cross is like synonymous to a noose?
Today it would be synonymous to a noose because everybody wears that Christian cross. Like you see, even rappers have a cross on their neck, and they're the most evilest people on the face of the planet. So even wearing that cross don't change it. But it is kind of like a symbol of it. It's almost disrespectful to Christ when you think about it. Because him, that symbol, if he's on that cross, when Christ said in the scriptures, take up the cross and carry it, I'm paraphrasing. When he was saying, take up his burden and do it like that, not put a chain around your neck and still be evil. So when I see a cross, that's what I see. I see all the evil that comes behind it. All right? In the back?
You just mentioned how, like, if a sister didn't have her father, she may act conservative towards her husband. So what if she's, like, not trying to go to counsel, or if she's not ready to, like, open up to you and explain the stuff that happened?
Sometimes they won't open up to you, but they will open up to a counselor. You know, they might not be ready for that. And that's wrong, because they should have never got with you if they're not ready for that. But because we do things out of impulse, so you'll get with a brother, you'll get with a sister, or a sister get with a brother based off of the impulse of they look good or whatever, not really looking at the ramifications of staying with this individual. So you got to kind of break like the barrier. So she may start off not wanting to talk to you, but if she was to get counsel from me, she would have to, even if she had to learn it. It's almost like I remember I never wanted to talk to my mother, and sometimes I didn't want to talk to my father, but I would talk to a stranger. When I should talk to my mother, because the mother is the one I got to interact with as a child, not the stranger. So it's the same thing in that dichotomy.
Let's say she didn't want to get counsel.
I would say get counsel as to why she would at that point. All right.
So if I could, so right now, say you've been say you want to build this sister up, like you see she got potential to be, to become a woman. Like say you see that she got some potential in her to be a woman that serve her man, to be a woman that's righteous, but she's struggling with it. She's struggling hard with it. And you checked her a few times, but she struggled with the check-ins, but she still tried. With some alternative ways to build that system.
You're probably gonna have to learn to be patient, and you're gonna look at what you checking her with, or the test that you give her. Maybe it's too hard for her. Maybe it's too much for her. You gotta give baby. No, we got like 90 days for a brother, and then you have a trooper program, and then you have the officer's test. So you can't get a woman and then expect her to just take it and just start running straight from the rip. You got to give her baby steps. So you might give a young man a small thing to do and let them work that small thing. Take that same amount of time with that woman you chose to be your wife. I mean, she's going to be yours forever. So you ain't getting rid of her. So whether she get on day 1 or day 1,000, that's still your rib. Right. So you just got to look at your rib and learn your rib and then give it to her at a pace when she can handle it.
Right.
All right. That's right. Any other guy?
So the white man have all these different types of philosophies that they use for counseling, right? With Freud or Jung or anyone else. So do we have anything in place, ISUBK or anyone else? Is there anything?
Yeah, you call our school, we have General Hyman on down that can give you counseling. I don't know the white people you refer to.
Right. What I mean by that is, when you go to school to learn those type of counseling, if you want to be a therapist, a counselor, whatever it is, you can follow that same train of thought by using those same philosophies. Right. So is there anything that is written down within your
That's why I'm telling you to come into our, that's why I said from General Hyman on down, and then we'll give you our blueprint of what we have in place.
Okay.
So that you can do that as well.
I understand.
That's why I said that. All right. Any other? Yes, yes.
When you said about the rib, that was so to
when I said about the what? The rib? Oh, okay.
Can you really explain it? Because I'm thinking that Lord laid him down, took his rib out, and made
Nah.
I mean, like, how did that
we say rib, okay. In the I'll give it as short and quick as possible. Okay. Mankind was created on the 6th day. So you had a boom of people created on that day. Adam is spoken about on the 7th day. He's already alive. When it calls Eve his rib, it's talking. That's why Adam says this is flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. It's just talking about her being a family member. She was related to him. She was a cousin. And when you go into 2 Samuel's, the whole house of Israel told David, we was bone of thy bone, flesh of thy flesh. When Jacob went to see his uncle Laban, he also called him bone of his bone, flesh of his flesh. It's just a way of saying family. So we take the same slang and saying rib in the same manner. All right.
So let me ask this question, like in a sense where, you know, you got a man coming up who's interested in UPK, like, and then you like, you know, introduce me to people in your family, different people, and like, now I see UPK or people see UPK from the outside. What does UPK represent? Like, what is the whole philosophy, or like if you would just explain UPK to an outsider or something like that? It's like from what they see you yelling in the street or whatever like that. You know, and I'm talking speaking of, you know, wife, female, you know, girlfriend, family member. Like, what is it that brought you into, or how a person should be looking at UPK?
The first thing I would always say about ICBK is we are the embodiment of the Most High, physically on the earth. We spiritually represent Him here. That's what I would say first. When they bring up the yelling, I would ask. I usually say, "You ain't mad about nothing." Like when you see black people in the condition that they're in, that don't make you angry and want to say something about it, want to fix the problem or address the problem. And then I give them the truth of the Bible, which is according to the Bible, the Blacks, Hispanics, Native Indians, we are the true children of the Most High. And I explain to them why we're in this condition, why it's our fault. Like it's our fault. Like that doesn't take away from what the white man has done. And the reason why I say it's our fault, because if it's something that we did, it's something that we can fix. The scriptures don't say the white man is going to fix it for us. They say we have to fix it. So I tell them how we fix it, and then usually I ask questions, or they might have biblical questions, and I start answering it from there. That's usually how I do it. I don't see why anybody would get mad at us yelling. To be honest, I mean, we got a mic.
Well, not get mad at you yelling, but just for just, you know, what does UPK represent? What is it? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we represent the one solution that black people have in the ghettos of America. You want to stop the drug dealers, you come into UPK. You want to stop child molesters, domestic violence, drugs, whatever it is you want to stop that's evil, you come into the ISUBK. That's what we're about. That's what we're about. Any other questions? Okay, with that, I'd like to thank y'all for coming out. I get to eat me some food now too. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day.
I didn't.
Jake Money, what's up, Dad?
You see, I bounced right back, right?